The weather and those headlines, we took you live to Nasrec near Soweto, south of Johannesburg, where the ANC Secretary General and spokesperson were speaking about their diagnostic report and some of the issues to be thrashed out at this policy conference, crucial for the ANC, especially some would say, given where the party is right now. Well, someone attending that conference, Aldrin St-Pierre, and he joins us from Nasrec. And Aldrin, I noticed that you asked about the Guptas. First, Gwede Mantashe said, journalists are too focused on the Guptas and the person of the president, and they're not focusing on policy issues in the diagnostic report. But as you pointed out, it's in the report, some of these issues. Were you happy with the answer?
Well, certainly not happy with that answer, considering that the issue of the Guptas, as it stands at the moment, was not brought by journalists, but rather it was brought by the ANC itself through this diagnostic report. Even if you go through this report, it has, I think, about 3 chapters that specifically focus on the influence of the Guptas, or the perceived influence of the Guptas on government, as well as the ANC, and how it is dividing the party. And I just quickly want to bring in here Dr. Mcebisi Ndletyana, who's been with us since earlier this morning.
Yes.
Were you at all surprised how it almost seemed as though that Gwede Mantashe was trying to deflect the issue of the Guptas and trying really hard during this press briefing to get reporters to focus on the issues of policies and to focus on other issues besides the Guptas?
Well, that's a divisive issue in the ANC because they have to decide to investigate and do so immediately. And that has implications for a number of people. They don't want to handle it personally, or rather organizationally, but they would prefer the police deal with it, because then it's a police issue. It's not the ANC going against its own members, because some of these members are part of factions. So if their members are investigated, that they then see that as an attack against them. The ANC is trying to enforce unity here. It's trying very hard. But the president tried to do that, but then towards the end, he launched a severe attack against veterans of the ANC. So there's an attempt to have unity behind certain improper things. Because if you have unity, it must be unity that restores the health of the ANC, not unity for the sake of it. And so there's an element of whitewashing, not wanting to confront the real things. And the Gupta thing, the reason why the ANC is where it is now at 54% is because of lack of credibility, a crisis of leadership. And that crisis rests right at the helm, at the top of the organization, in the person of the president. They don't want to confront that.
Quite surprisingly as well, there's a question that was asked, I think, by Karima Brown, who asked about Gwede Mantashe, and she specifically asked whether the ANC as an organization still has organizational integrity. And he decided and said that, listen, I'm not going to answer that question, but what I can tell you is that I, as Gwede Mantashe, the Secretary General of the ANC, I have integrity. Why is it so difficult for this, for what is perceived to be the CEO of an organization to say, yes, the ANC has integrity?
Well, that lack of integrity, in fact, starts at a branch level. Kgalema Motlanthe has said ANC branches are bogus branches. You have the buying of members who are members of leaders. They are not members of the organization, right? And this is what the veterans are raising, is that you cannot have branches settling a matter that has to do with leadership when they themselves are proxies for certain financial interests, and in this case, the Gupta family. So they will sway. Obviously, if you have unethical individuals, the outcome is most likely going to be a flawed outcome. So this is a facade, that's what they're saying, and they are not far off the truth.
Well, listening to President Jacob Zuma speak about the stalwarts, and when he hit out at the stalwarts, he spoke about how they behaved in a very funny way in calling for this consultative conference. And then one then wonders that what exactly does the president see the role of the stalwarts to be in terms of trying to build this organization and trying to harness what he wants the party to be in terms of being unified?
because the branches are bogus, some of them have been bought by people linked to Jacob Zuma. He would prefer that his matter is addressed strictly by the ANC. Within the ANC, he has total control. But amongst the veterans, he doesn't have. These are his own peers, some of them a lot more senior than him. So they can say whatever they want to say to him. They are not indebted to him. So he doesn't want that independent arbiter adjudicating over this thing because he has no control. So for him, he has a better control within the ANC because those branches, as I said earlier, are not entirely ethical. There's a lot of money influence, and in that way, he's able to steer the outcome towards his own favor.
Were you at all surprised when the president mentioned the issues of the stalwarts and how the stalwarts have gone about trying to get this consultative conference, that the resounding applause that he received from some of the delegates in this plenary, it almost seemed as though that they were agreeing with the president that you have what the president called so-called stalwarts of the ANC who says that they know the ANC, yet they are behaving in this manner.
In fact, that was a little bit surprising, especially coming from the president, because he was pitting the ANC, conference of the ANC against veterans of the ANC. He was sowing divisions within the ANC. Right, saying these people do not have any credibility. They should not be listened to. So the fact that you had some of them clapping for him simply shows that some of them do agree with the president because, after all, some of them have been brought here to support the president regardless of whatever else.
And strangely, though, another question coming from the floor during this press briefing was with regards to that wasn't the president sowing divisions by hitting out at the stalwarts. And again, Gwede Mantashe failed to answer that question. He said that I don't want to deal with that here. Was this another missed opportunity to show that I'm Gwede Mantashe, man of integrity?
Well, if the theme is unity, you don't want to be seen to be going against the president. So you also want to strike that unifying chord, right? And this is where you see the president used part of his address to protect personal interests. He started off by taking national economy issues, speaking very moderately. Then at some point he veered towards personal interest, standing conference against veterans because veterans are against him. Therefore, the rest of conference should be against veterans. And the ANC cannot win this if it papers over real issues. If it seeks to have unity that is not based on any principle, substantive issues. Because out of this, the ANC must go out and explain these things to society. And society looks at these things differently, very differently. That is why the ANC has dropped from 67% in 2009 to 54% last year. And don't dismiss local government elections and say, no, they are local, they won't be replicated at national. Local and national election results are pretty much the same in the last 4 or so elections.
And I guess in the last local government elections, the IEC was actually saying that they were quite surprised at the number of people who came out to vote, although the ANC was arguing that there were some of the people who didn't come up to vote. Let's speak about the hashtag Zuma Must Fall. This report speaks to that as well. It speaks to ANC members who are impatient, quote unquote, to see the back of President Jacob Zuma. It also speaks about this Zuma Must Fall and what Gwede Mantashe calls a color revolution.
That was not smart of Secretary General of the ANC. Because in any democratic society, citizens have the right to express themselves. Ultimately, the sovereignty of a democratic republic rests with its own citizens. And it's quite insulting to think that people don't have their own self-agency, that they are being controlled elsewhere. And just before that, you had a constitutional court saying the president has violated his own oath of office. That outrages any sane-minded person without an outside instigation. So it was an ill-thought-out idea. That's the rest in this report makes a lot of sense. That's the one part that is completely odd and ill thought out.
Just quickly in closing, Baleka Mbete, the Speaker of Parliament, has now announced that on the 3rd of August there will be debate around the motion of no confidence against President Jacob Zuma. This report also speaks about the motion of no confidence against the President and how some ANC members who want to see the President leave are willing to vote with the opposition. Do you think that after this policy conference, that those who are perceived to be likely to vote against President Jacob Zuma might change their stance, if at all there were those thoughts of those type of members being part of the ANC caucus in Parliament?
I think if they believe that the ANC is in a crisis, that people need to take a stand and follow their conscience, that if you think that the ANC as an organization can agree to that, it can't agree possibly because it's divided. So you have to take a stand as an ANC cadre who took an oath, a serious member of the ANC, and do what you think is necessary to save the ANC. So if you are sincere and committed to saving the ANC, you will stick to that. If you're never sincere, I suppose you can be swayed either way.
Well, certainly we heard also from the Chief Justice Mogoeng when he delivered that Constitutional Court judgment, speaking about how politicians should also listen to their conscience and how their loyalty should be to the Constitution, it should be to the oath of office that they took, and it should not just be to the party. And also speaking about the role of the Speaker of Parliament, Baleka Mbete, and saying that she too, like any other ordinary MP, would have to make sure that she upholds the Constitution and looks into the nitty-gritties of how she arrives at the decision whether the motion of no confidence and the vote will be done via secret ballot or will be done via an open ballot, that she has to try and balance those issues. Dr. Mcebisi, thank you so much for your time. It's been a great day, long day, and it's not the end of this, I guess.
Thank you and good night.
Thank you and good night as well. 5 days left of this policy conference. We'll continue with our coverage tomorrow. It's goodbye for now.
Thank you very much, Aldrin Sampear, live from Nasrec, following that press briefing given by mainly the ANC Secretary General a short while ago.